Welcome to the Daily. It's Thursday, May 12th with Greg Lawless. I'm Jason Seguini. We're going to get right to the action from last night at PPL Park in Philadelphia. The Union taking on the LA Galaxy. No David Beckham, but they did have Landon Donovan.
Yeah, and Donovan got the goal. He now has scored the last 5 goals for the LA Galaxy. They went up 1-0. It was a pretty sloppy goal, I have to say. I'm surprised that Juan Pablo Angel was not called for obstruction on the play, but it didn't matter. Donovan slotted home in the end. But that was nothing as sloppy as what happened at the other end, where Sean Franklin, defender for the Galaxy, gave away a goal practically. A bad back pass. Danny Mwenga steals in, gets around the goalkeeper, puts it away for the equalizer, and Philadelphia maintained their unbeaten record at home this season.
Yeah, and good job by Mwenga to get his first goal of the season. Some nice touches in there, as sloppy as it was on the defensive side. We're going to move on now to Dallas, where Toronto FC came to town, but Dallas had enough to squeak out a 1-0 victory. Yeah,
Toronto coming off of that win in Joao Plata and all the hype about the player of the week, but it didn't matter. Dallas took care of business. They get a 1-0 win thanks to Daniel Hernandez, his first goal of the season. He actually was very dangerous, I thought, in the midfield. Hernandez was the captain for FC Dallas. A good win for Dallas, and by the way, their second win in a row now, despite not having David Ferreira in the lineup.
Yeah, and Aaron Vinter not very happy about the penalty kick call, but I got to tell you, Greg, I'm a fan. I don't like the obstruction on those set pieces, so I like that being called tight, and players hopefully learn to quit holding on.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I actually think there was a pretty soft call on that one, but it didn't matter.
A defender. Let's move on to Vancouver now, where San Jose came to town. They got off to a 1-0 lead thanks to a great Chris Wondolowski goal.
Yeah, and the Earthquakes, of course, struggling in the last couple of weeks or last month or so, but they do well. Wondo gets his 4th goal of the season, and you know, it's a little bit like 2010 when he won the Golden Boot. He started a little bit quietly under the radar. Obviously, when you're the reigning Golden Boot winner, you're not under the radar anymore, but maybe this is what we're waiting for from Wondo right now. However, you have to wait until the last 10 minutes of any game that's played in Vancouver, because you never know what kind of sparks are going to fly, and it was Davide Cumiento getting the equalizer for the Whitecaps. Another dramatic finish up there in Vancouver.
Yeah, this had some, I guess, similarities to the goal that Koski Kimura eliminated San Jose from the playoffs with last year, coming in from the left side, and it was definitely a cross. That went into the goal. Ask Breck Shea. They all count. All right, last game from last night was an interesting one. New York Red Bulls headed up to Montreal. Of course, Montreal coming into the league next season. They got a chance to play against some MLS competition and did fairly well.
Yes, they did. In fact, they got the win. It was Ali Gerba with a golazo for Montreal. It's a good showing for the Impact. Of course, New York, for them, it's a friendly. They're thinking about the regular season. You know, all the starters didn't play all the minutes and everything like that. So I think both teams got out of it what they wanted. Montreal showed well for their fans. New York got a couple of minutes for their guys, and that's about it.
All right, well, speaking of New York, the Castrol Index, if you haven't heard about it, it's coming to MLS. It's a good way to rate, I guess, player performance over the course of a season. And the #1 player is one of the New York Red Bulls.
It is. It's Thierry Henry for the month of April. 3 goals, 2 assists, and New York went 3-1-1. The Castrol Index for April is out now on MLSsoccer.com, the first ever time that we've had this. And what it's really doing is it's ranking the performances of players. The analysts for Castrol looking at all of the stats, particularly passes and movements, and where they are on the field, assessing what positive or negative impact they might have on the team.
Very cool stuff. You can check that out on the site. One last note before we go, though. We finally find out the suspension to Chivas attacker Marcos Mondiani for that tackle on Javier Morales.
Yeah, and it's going to come down as 3-game suspension, which will be tacked on to the 1 automatic game for the red card. There's also an extra fine involved. A lot of talk is going to revolve around how much this compares to Brian Mullen's suspension of 9 games for his tackle on Steve Zakuani. Here's what the disciplinary committee said. Basically, that Mondiani's tackle is clumsy and it's reckless and it's from behind. However, it is a defensive action trying to stop Morales from going to goal, whereas Mullen's tackle is nowhere near the goal. There's really no place for it at all, and there's a lot more of a hint of trying to injure the player. So I think that it's a little bit more understood that Mondiani is making a defensive play, therefore he doesn't necessarily deserve as much of a suspension. At least that's what the disciplinary committee said.
Well, there's plenty to debate about it, and we'll be talking about it on Extra Time Radio later today. You can get it on Buzzsprout or iTunes. One last note, FC Dallas making an announcement later today about a player. We don't know much about it, but stay tuned to the site and you can find out. We'll be back on the Daily tomorrow.